So for the first time in history, tonight's 7 News Bulletin at 6 o'clock with Jessica Adamson will come from the floor of Parliament House. Jess, the new Parliament is likely to look a bit different, in fact very different from how it has been.
Jane, it could look dramatically different regardless of who wins, because this time it's a 3-horse race. As well, 12 members of the House of Assembly are retiring, many of them senior party figures. Now, we know the House of Assembly seats 47 members and all are up for re-election tonight. 24 is the magical number that either party needs to be able to govern in their own right. Any less, of course, and they'll need to team up with the independents or potentially members of Nick Xenophon's SA Best party should they win seats tonight. Now, one thing is for sure, and that's when Parliament resumes next month, is that we'll have a new Speaker. He or she will sit at the back of the room in this exquisitely carved chair overseeing the proceedings. Now, we know the government sits to the Speaker's right. The Premier sits right here, closest to the Speaker's chair, and his ministers sit alongside him. And as we know, Labor has occupied this government front bench for the last 16 years. Now, on the left of the Speaker sits the opposition. The opposition leader sits right here, closest to the Speaker's chair, and his or her shadow ministers sit alongside. Now, here's an interesting fact you might not know. The distance between the two parties is just over the length of 2 outstretched swords, a reminder of more dangerous political times in our history. Now, of course, our members don't bring their swords to work anymore, but I suspect some of them would have quite liked to have brought their swords to work over the last few weeks. Let's have a look at the southern end of the chamber now. Let's have a look at the crossbenches. That's where the independents sit, and again, potentially any members of Nick Xenophon's SA Best party who will win seats tonight. Directly above the crossbenches is the Strangers Gallery, where members of the public can sit and watch all of the action of the day. I have to say, it's a lot quieter in here tonight than it normally is. We haven't even been heckled at yet. So the million-dollar question is just how is this chamber going to look when Parliament resumes next month? We'll have the very latest at 6, along with all the other day's news from here, the House of Assembly.
Good on you, Jess, and all the best coming up at 6 o'clock.
Good evening to you and welcome to the program. We begin with the extraordinary life story of Crows star Josh Jenkins. Now, what many don't know is the key forward grew up in foster care, and tonight, for the very first time, he opens up about how he owes his success to his very special foster mum. Jessica Adamson has his heartwarming story.
My mum and dad were both really young when they had me. I think, you know, they were just immature. They weren't ready to have children of their own, but I was lucky I had someone to fall in the arms of.
Josh couldn't even say anything more than yes or no when he was 2, but within 3 months he could have a conversation with you.
Permanency and stability, belonging, nurture, they all heal the trauma from abuse and neglect.
Driving forward entry, Jenkins.
He's a well-known face on the footy field, but it's little known Josh Jenkins was a foster child at 2. 27 years ago, he and his sister Jenna and later their brother Jordan were taken into care by a woman they call Grandma, Edith Casey. She was 60 and had already raised 6 children.
The mother just she just had no idea, and she had the children taken off her, and the dad didn't want to look after them, and so they were put in permanent care.
The children grew up at Swan Hill in Victoria, knowing they were loved and safe.
Grandma was someone quite unique who was willing to put everything on the line and look after us.
In those early years, Josh longed to see his dad, but there were so many broken promises.
And he would say, you know, I'll come and get the kids. I'll come and get the kids, you know, later that night, and that night would turn into, you know, I'll get them at lunchtime, and then lunchtime would turn into Sunday, and then all of a sudden we wouldn't be able to go. It was challenging, and there were probably some more upsetting times.
But basketball and footy became Josh's life. Sport gave him self-esteem.
When he was 3 or 4, my sons married, in a way. They come up for Christmas. And Josh apparently was kicking a stone around. And so Adrian and Owen went in and bought a football. It was on from Evermore.
Get off the bus and I'd be out there from 4:30, have dinner, and then, you know, daylight savings, you could stay out there until 8 o'clock, 8:30 at night. So I used to just be out there.
Can he kick a 4th goal? You betcha.
Edith remains his biggest fan. The pair talk every couple of days.
I had a 6-month stint in Bendigo Hospital 5 years ago, and he used to fly over to Melbourne, hire a car, come up and see me, go back to Melbourne and fly home by 7 or 8 o'clock at night.
Jenna and Jordan often give me some stick because there's a shrine of my football achievements at home. She takes so much pride in what we've been able to achieve, all three of us.
Incredibly, it almost wasn't to be.
When they'd been here 2 years, we had quite a ding-dong because they said they've got to be moved every 2 years. I said, well, that's the biggest lot of bull dust I'd ever heard, because you get them, they're relying on you, they do, you know, sit with you at night and cry when they're hurt, and you're going to take them off and put them somewhere else. So I won that battle.
Long ball, Jenkins, get him up!
A phenomenal story that, yeah, the three siblings were able to stay together.
Foster carer advocate Rachel Titley says the battles Edith fought are still being fought by foster parents today.
That potential is not unearthed if we are shuffled like 1 in 3 of our kids are, you know, more than 10 times throughout their childhood.
I was lucky to always have a constant or the same household to grow up in, and yeah, kids that have moved around a lot, it would just be so difficult to find any kind of rhythm and any kind of continuity in their life.
Next month, Josh and his fiancée Hannah will welcome their own child.
Oh my goodness, when they had the news, he just about jumped through the telephone to me when he rang up, and very excited.
Hannah often asks me if I'm nervous about becoming a parent, but I don't carry any nerves or any fears, because I always said, from when I was old enough, I always said to myself, you know, I was going to be the parent that my parents weren't.
A new chapter in a story of love, commitment and triumph.
Never regretted it. They kept me young.
I wouldn't have this type of career if it wasn't for her, so certainly owe it all to her, and I'm glad that she takes so much pride in it.
Jenkins gets it. Got his second, 3 in a row here for Adelaide now.
Wow, what a champ she is. Jessica Adamson there.
Good evening. A 17-year-old girl's in hospital with a stab wound tonight after allegedly being set upon by a fellow student at Renmark High, throwing the school into lockdown. Live now to Jessica Adamson at Berry Hospital, where the victim is. Jess, what's the latest?
Well, Jane, as we go to air, I can see just a few metres away the 17-year-old victim, who is in a serious condition, is being stretchered across the road to the waiting rescue helicopter by paramedics from the Berry Hospital. Now, as we say, she is in a serious condition. She is being brought in by a team of paramedics. She appears to have family by her side. We will be able to bring you those pictures shortly. But family members of the 18-year-old accused, who was also brought here for assessment, arrived at the hospital a short time ago. They were followed by police. Here's what police had to say. Frightening incident at the school.
Obviously, it's something that's going to be of great concern to the students and the parents, and that's one of the focus, getting them the best information we can.
Now, paramedics were first on scene. They took over from high school staff who'd rushed to the girl's aid. It's understood she was stabbed in the chest with a knife. Police arrived soon afterwards and arrested that 18-year-old fellow student. The school immediately went into lockdown. Of course, the incident has rattled the community.
It's been a stabbing. What's happening to all the young ones these days?
It's a disgrace. That's all I can say.
Now, this afternoon, the Education Department moved quickly to reassure this frightened community, saying the incident didn't represent a specific wider threat to the community. The department says all students were released a short time later, and it's assessing if extra security measures are required. Now, if we just go back to those live pictures, and I'll step out of the way, you can see the 17-year-old student is being loaded onto the rescue helicopter right now. She will be airlifted to Adelaide for further assessment. We're told she's in a serious condition, but she will make a full recovery. Of course, those at the school will be offered counselling. I'm sure they will need it. Back to you, John.
Thanks, Jess.